It begins quietly, almost invisibly, with a well-meaning conversation, a gentle nudge, or a casual question over dinner. And before you know it, a lifetime of hard work, savings, and the stability you've built starts slipping away. Not due to illness, not due to misfortune, but from the very people you've loved and raised, your adult children. What starts as a simple request, perhaps to help with a home down payment, cover tuition for your grandchildren, or invest in their business, can turn into a steady stream of withdrawals, favors, and expectations that slowly chip away at your financial independence. This isn't about denying love or generosity. It's about the reality so many seniors face today, where early inheritance, whether intentional or coerced, is becoming disturbingly normalized. And lawyers across the country are waving red flags, warning seniors and their families that this quiet erosion of assets has consequences far more serious than most people imagine. In many cases, it's not even framed as inheritance. It's cloaked in language like just a loan, a little help, or you weren't going to need it anyway. Yet the impact is the same, a subtle transfer of wealth from the aging parent to their adult children while they are still alive. What most don't realize is that this can not only endanger the parent's ability to pay for long-term care, medical emergencies, or a comfortable retirement, but also creates tension, resentment, and irreversible family rifts. The issue isn't just financial. It's emotional, psychological, and often legal. There's a delicate balance between wanting to help your children and enabling dependency or entitlement. And it becomes even more dangerous when those adult children begin to act as if your assets are already theirs, as if your money is just in holding until they take it. When adult children begin asking about life insurance policies, property deeds, or suggest helping with finances before there's any medical or cognitive need, it's time to stop and pay attention. Because what might appear as care or convenience could very well be an early attempt to shift control and access, sometimes without your full awareness. Lawyers have seen heartbreaking cases where parents unwittingly sign away partial rights to their home or give access to bank accounts, only to realize too late that their assets are being drained, leaving them dependent on the very people who should have been protecting them. And once the money is gone, it rarely comes back. You can't unspend a retirement fund or recover a property that's been sold under someone else's name. Worse, when things go sour, taking legal action becomes emotionally complicated. No one wants to sue their own children, and many seniors suffer silently, ashamed or afraid of conflict, letting their quality of life deteriorate in order to preserve family peace. This silence is one reason the problem persists. Seniors often don't tell friends, financial advisors, or even lawyers about what's happening until it's too late. There's a stigma, an internalized fear of appearing gullible or even disloyal. But here's what must be said. Protecting your financial future is not selfish. Setting boundaries does not mean you love your children any less. In fact, securing your assets ensures you don't become a burden later and can even leave a structured, responsible legacy. Many seniors don't realize that giving away money or assets prematurely can disqualify them for Medicaid or other benefits if they later need nursing home care. There's a 5-year look-back rule, meaning if you gifted assets within 5 years of applying, you could be denied coverage. Imagine needing full-time care and being told you don't qualify because your adult child convinced you to transfer your home to them just a few years earlier. What's worse is that in many of these cases, once the child receives the inheritance early, they may feel no obligation to support their parent in return. The sense of family responsibility that once existed starts to erode, replaced by entitlement or emotional distance. There are stories upon stories of seniors forced to downsize, live alone in deteriorating conditions, or even re-enter the workforce because their savings were handed over too early in the name of love, trust, or obligation. The truth is, adult children may not fully understand the long-term consequences of what they're asking. They may not see the decades you spent saving, the sacrifices made, or the stability that fragile nest egg provides. That's why conversations about inheritance must be handled with clarity, boundaries, and legal protection, not just assumptions or goodwill. More and more legal experts now recommend that parents have formal documents, living wills, and trust arrangements that prevent premature access to assets unless truly necessary. This isn't about distrusting your children. It's about protecting everyone involved from future disputes, financial ruin, or confusion. Some attorneys even advise families to bring in a neutral third party, a financial planner, elder law specialist, or mediator, to help structure these discussions so that they remain respectful but firmly grounded in reality. Because once expectations are set, especially financial ones, they are very hard to reverse. And when adult children begin to build their future on the assumption of early inheritance, it can lead to reckless decisions, resentment, and eventually anger when you enforce boundaries. Seniors are often told to prepare wills and estate plans for after they pass away, but few are encouraged to actively defend their assets while they are still alive and vulnerable. If you've ever felt pressured to gift money you weren't comfortable giving or noticed subtle manipulation about your finances, it's not paranoia. It's a sign to pause and reassess. You have every right to say no. You have every right to protect what you've built. Because while generosity is beautiful, financial abuse often wears the mask of love. And the longer it's ignored, the deeper the damage becomes, not just to your wallet, but to your dignity, independence, and family harmony. Too many seniors are losing more than their money. They're losing their voice. And it's time to take it back. There comes a point in every senior's life when reflection becomes more than a casual glance in a rearview mirror. It becomes a crucial moment of assessment, of decisions that shape the comfort, dignity, and freedom of the years ahead. And nowhere is this more important than when it comes to the deeply emotional and often quietly devastating issue of inheritance and how it's handled while you're still alive. The hard truth is that many aging parents are unknowingly funding their children's lives at the expense of their own security, giving away pieces of their financial future one small favor at a time. Whether it's co-signing a loan, handing over large sums of cash for a down payment, or temporarily transferring assets to avoid taxes or speed up probate, the result is often the same. Seniors left with fewer resources and more vulnerability. And for what? In many cases, the promises made of repayment, of gratitude, of future care are never fulfilled. And what's even more tragic is that once these assets are gone, there is no turning back. Legal safeguards often fall short, especially when family dynamics are involved. Most seniors don't want to sue their own children. They don't want court battles or estrangements. They want harmony, legacy, peace. But without proactive boundaries, they often find themselves backed into a corner, emotionally bruised and financially strained, afraid to speak up out of fear of rejection, guilt, or public shame. And still, society doesn't talk about this nearly enough. There's a romanticized narrative about family, where love is assumed to guarantee fairness and support. But in real life, even the most loving families can fall into dysfunction when money enters the picture. Adult children struggling financially or emotionally may subconsciously, or very consciously, see their parents' assets as a solution. They won't need it much longer. They're better off helping now than waiting. I'll pay them back someday. These justifications become dangerous when combined with a parent's instinct to help and an absence of formal agreements. Before long, patterns emerge that are hard to break. Children making financial demands without remorse. Seniors feeling cornered but afraid to say no. And in the worst cases, elder financial abuse evolves into emotional isolation, where the parent becomes cut off from other relatives, friends, or advisors who might intervene. This is why experts urge all seniors, no matter how healthy or independent they feel today, to create a solid, legally backed financial strategy. That means working with an elder law attorney to establish living trusts, clearly define power of attorney documents, health directives, and inheritance clauses that cannot be overridden by guilt or convenience. It means never putting a child's name on your bank account without fully understanding what that legally entails. It means ensuring that if you give money, you document it, whether as a gift, a loan, or an early distribution, so no one can twist your intentions later. And most importantly, it means having these conversations openly before crisis hits. You deserve to live your final decades in peace, not in financial anxiety, not in emotional manipulation, not in fear that one misstep will leave you without a home, support, or dignity. Protecting your finances isn't about mistrust, it's about wisdom. It's about recognizing that even good people, under stress or influence, can make poor choices. It's about giving your future self the same compassion, foresight, and advocacy you would give to someone you love. And it's about recognizing that what you've built over a lifetime matters. Your savings, your home, your plans, they were earned through decades of work, sacrifice, and discipline. You don't owe anyone access to that just because they share your DNA. If they truly respect you, they will respect your boundaries. They will wait until you're gone to receive their inheritance. Not because they're entitled to it, but because it's a gift you chose to leave behind. And if they don't respect that, then giving them more now won't fix the relationship. It will only deepen the imbalance. Seniors are not banks. You are not retirement plans for your adult children. You are individuals with lives, needs, and dreams of your own. You deserve autonomy. You deserve safety. And you deserve to age with dignity, without feeling like a burden or a wallet. So if you're facing pressure, manipulation, or subtle coercion to hand over what you've earned, pause. Talk to a professional. Set boundaries. Document everything. Your future matters. Your comfort matters. And your legacy should reflect not just who loved you, but who respected you enough to wait. Let your final years be defined not by regret, but by empowerment, by peace of mind, by the knowledge that you made choices that honored your journey, not just your family's expectations. Because you are worth protecting, and it is never too late to reclaim your financial voice. As this issue of early inheritance continues to unfold across families worldwide, especially among aging parents and their adult children, what becomes alarmingly clear is that the emotional manipulation and subtle financial coercion aren't always malicious or even conscious. In fact, many adult children genuinely believe they are entitled to a portion of their parents' wealth before death, often citing reasons like, "You're not using it all anyway," or "Why wait until you're gone when you could enjoy watching us benefit now?" And for many seniors, these emotionally loaded statements strike a vulnerable chord. There's a deep-rooted desire to feel useful, to be needed, to contribute to the next generation's success. But what's tragically overlooked is how this sense of purpose can be weaponized, turning love into a lever and guilt into a transaction. In some households, adult children may begin managing the parents' finances under the guise of helping, but without the proper legal structures or boundaries in place. This help quickly evolves into unauthorized decisions, self-directed withdrawals, and even changes in estate documents, all without the parents' full comprehension. And here's what lawyers are deeply concerned about. Most of these changes are not challenged until the parent is no longer capable of defending themselves or is already deceased, at which point the damage is irreversible and the disputes become ugly. Drawn-out courtroom battles among siblings and relatives who all believed they were entitled to a slice of what remains. But what makes this situation even more complex is that the law doesn't always protect the vulnerable the way people assume. Legal definitions of financial abuse can be narrow, and unless clear exploitation is proven, which often requires substantial evidence, many cases of early inheritance are dismissed as family matters, not legal ones. This leaves countless seniors at the mercy of informal agreements, verbal promises, and trust that may not be reciprocated. Imagine a widowed mother of 3 who decides to give one child an advance on their inheritance to buy a house, thinking it's a fair and generous decision. But when she passes, the other siblings unaware of the arrangement, discover that a major portion of the estate is gone and family unity collapses. Worse, if the mother begins needing expensive medical care before she dies, and the money has already been handed over, she may be forced to rely on the state or receive substandard treatment, all because she gave too much, too soon, without legal safeguards. And that's the harsh reality. Giving early inheritance without a comprehensive plan can put not only your future at risk, but also damage the very family harmony you were trying to preserve. Financial planners and elder law attorneys repeatedly warn seniors that once you give away control, whether over your money, your home, or your health care, you are vulnerable to decisions that may not align with your best interest, even if they're made by people who say they love you. It is not uncommon for adult children, once they gain access to their parents' assets, to begin making decisions based on convenience or financial gain, not the parent's quality of life. For example, choosing a cheaper nursing home, discouraging expensive surgeries, or even selling the family home under the excuse of downsizing when in fact the parent is simply being displaced. Seniors must understand that their autonomy is tied directly to their financial independence. And every time they relinquish a piece of that independence, by handing over bank account access, naming a child as joint property owner, or signing over durable power of attorney without safeguards, they are potentially putting their future in someone else's hands, for better or worse. The problem intensifies in blended families, where stepchildren, second spouses, and half-siblings may have competing interests or hidden resentments. Lawyers are inundated with cases where an elderly parent's intentions were overridden by aggressive stepchildren or manipulated by one child at the expense of the others. Sometimes a son or daughter who lives closest to the parent takes on caregiving duties and slowly begins to shift financial control into their hands, believing they deserve compensation, while siblings far away remain unaware until it's too late. And it's not just about money. It's about control, dignity, and legacy. It's about ensuring that your final years are lived with comfort, respect, and the resources you've spent a lifetime building. That's why experts recommend creating what's called an inheritance firewall, which includes establishing irrevocable trusts, limited durable powers of attorney with checks and balances, and detailed written agreements that spell out when and how assets can be accessed. Seniors must also stop keeping these matters secret. The days of hushed family finances are over. Transparency is the only path to fairness. Every child should know where they stand, what's expected, and what the parents' intentions are, preferably with a lawyer or mediator present to ensure nothing is left to interpretation. Some parents fear that being too open about their finances will cause jealousy, arguments, or even greedy behavior. But here's the truth. Silence breeds confusion, and confusion breeds conflict. Clarity is the only cure. If you've promised your daughter a share in the family home because she took care of you, then document it legally. If you want your savings to be distributed evenly among your children, say it clearly in your will and don't give advances that create imbalance. Most importantly, never feel obligated to fund your adult children's lifestyles at the expense of your own security. You raised them. You gave them a start. Your retirement years are not a time to continue rescuing them from their poor choices or indulging their dreams if it means sacrificing your health, housing, or happiness. You do not owe them their inheritance early. In fact, you owe it to yourself to make sure it's given on your terms at the appropriate time and with your dignity intact. Because once the money leaves your hands, so does the control. And in many tragic cases, so does the relationship. Protecting yourself financially is not a betrayal of your family. It's a promise to them and to yourself that you will not become a victim of love turned toxic, of trust misplaced, or of silence mistaken for approval. It's your money, your legacy, your life. And it must remain that way until the very end. As the financial pressures on younger generations intensify, rising housing costs, student debt, and the soaring price of raising children, it's no surprise that more adult children are turning to their aging parents for assistance. not as a last resort, but as a planned expectation. This cultural shift where parents are subtly or overtly expected to help out with their life savings is deeply concerning for legal and financial experts who see the same heartbreaking story unfold repeatedly. An older adult agrees to provide an early inheritance or large gift to help their child through a rough patch, only to find themselves left with diminished resources, growing dependency, and in some cases, outright abandonment. What makes this particularly alarming is the speed at which the dynamics shift once money has changed hands. Adult children who were once affectionate and attentive may become distant or even avoided, especially if their motivation was primarily financial. Parents often don't recognize these red flags until they're already in a precarious situation. The phone calls grow less frequent. Visits dwindle. Financial support, once given freely with love, is never repaid or even acknowledged. And when the senior voices concern, they are met with gaslighting, being told they're forgetful, selfish, or overly dramatic. This emotional manipulation is not rare. It's a documented form of elder abuse that lawyers and psychologists warn is growing rapidly, but remains vastly underreported. Even more disturbing is that this abuse doesn't always look like abuse. It often masquerades as care. An adult child moves into the parent's home to help out and slowly gains access to financial documents, credit cards, checkbooks. Then come the justifications. I'm doing your grocery shopping, so I'll just reimburse myself, or you said I could have this eventually anyway. Without clear boundaries, this living arrangement morphs into control, where the senior is no longer calling the shots, but instead is asking permission for how their own money is used. And all the while, the adult child may feel morally justified, even righteous, believing they're simply accepting what they are owed. The legal consequences are devastating. In some cases, parents unknowingly sign over rights or accounts, believing they're simply helping their child out temporarily. They don't realize that adding a child's name to a bank account can legally grant them full ownership of the funds, or that signing a quitclaim deed to make probate easier could effectively eliminate their say in what happens to the family home. Even when the parent remains mentally competent, reversing these decisions can be legally complicated and emotionally explosive. Family members often accuse each other of manipulation or undue influence, with painful divisions that can last a lifetime. And if cognitive decline is involved, the court may need to intervene, resulting in guardianships or conservatorship that remove all autonomy from the senior altogether. But what's even more disheartening is how many seniors stay silent. They don't want to cause drama. They don't want to be a burden. They fear losing the love of their children. So they tolerate the misuse, minimize the financial losses, and internalize the guilt. They tell themselves it's their fault for not planning better, that they're lucky to have any help at all, that this is just what families do. But none of that makes the behavior right. And more importantly, it doesn't protect their future. This is why elder law attorneys stress the importance of proactive planning, setting up trusts that clearly define how and when assets are distributed, choosing powers of attorney with built-in accountability, and holding annual family meetings that clarify expectations and roles. Transparency doesn't create conflict, it prevents it. And yet, so many families avoid these conversations, assuming that love alone will ensure fairness. But love is not a legal strategy. Hope is not a retirement plan. And trust, while beautiful, must be backed by documentation. There is no shame in protecting yourself. In fact, it's one of the most loving acts you can perform, not just for yourself, but for your family. Because when your wishes are clear and your financial boundaries are strong, everyone knows where they stand. There is less room for resentment, suspicion, or misinterpretation. And there is far less chance that your final years will be marked by conflict, betrayal, or regret. Seniors must also understand that their wealth, however modest, is more than just money. It is security, legacy, and a tool to ensure comfort in times of illness, transition, or crisis. Handing over large sums of money early may seem generous, but it can leave you vulnerable when you need it most. Medical bills, home repairs, long-term care. These costs can wipe out savings in the blink of an eye. And if your assets are gone because you try to be helpful or avoid hurt feelings, there may be no way to recover. The government will not reimburse you. Your children may not have the means or the desire to step in. And even if they do, the dynamic has changed. You've gone from provider to dependent. And that shift is often accompanied by a loss of dignity, freedom, and say in your own affairs. It's not selfish to put your needs first. It's not greedy to protect what you've built. And it's not unloving to demand respect, transparency, and boundaries from those closest to you. If your children truly love you, they will understand. If they do not, then giving them early access to your inheritance will not buy their love. It will only deepen their entitlement. The best gift you can give your family is clarity. The best gift you can give yourself is peace of mind. And the best way to achieve both is by having these difficult conversations early, documenting your wishes clearly, and refusing to allow guilt, manipulation, or family pressure to override your judgment. Because once the money is gone, the consequences are yours to live with, not theirs.